I can't believe May is just around the corner, and that can only mean one thing, that it's almost time to celebrate the horror genre. What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. You're with Chris, and today I'm pleased to announce my participation in Horror Mayhem for the third year in a row. I'm a little bit late to the party because up until very recently I was on a leave of absence from YouTube, dealing with some personal issues as well as a massive reading slump, the biggest slump I've ever had, which I don't want to repeat, but I'm very relieved that I've finally come out of that, and I'm super excited because this event, along with the awesome co-hosts that are doing this as well, it was one catalyst in particular that brought me back and motivated me to get back on the saddle and get back into it, and I couldn't be happier. So I'm feeling a lot better about things. I'll be up to full capacity soon with more content, so we'll see how that goes. Now, this reading project originally was created by the Bookish Bryants, fantastic people, and they have an awesome channel, and they are the most friendliest people you'll ever meet, and I've been happy to be a host since the project started. Now, traditionally the project is made up of 4 weekly themes that you stick to in reading horror, and this one, it has a couple of really good prompts that I'll go through in a moment, and with extra credit that can be achieved through a whole range of other prompts that make up what we call a bingo card this year, which is absolutely fantastic. So it's a bit of a challenge to have all those prompts included and read about in your videos or in the hosts' videos when they get put up. Now, unfortunately, Scott and Becky won't be participating this year due to some personal reasons, and in the meantime, all us hosts will be thinking of them, and hopefully everyone will, well, I know everyone will deliver fantastic content for their enjoyment, and I'm sure they will get a kick out of this project with what the hosts are going to be sharing on BookTube. It's going to be very exciting. It's going to be challenging as well, which is what it's all about. Now, the project generally dictates that you're to read horror for the month of May, with stories and novels up to 250 pages. Now, in the past, it has been a little bit more relaxed. That criterion has actually, even though it's set at 250 pages, you can go above that. There's no hard and fast rules there. Rules are made to be broken. So there's a little bit of latitude for reading longer works if you wish, as long as they stick to the prompts and things like that. Now, even if you're not a host, we do encourage you to participate, and if you haven't read horror before, it's the perfect opportunity to get your feet wet and sample the genre for yourself. There is a countless amount of content out there with stories and books and novels and graphic novels and audio content, which are also perfectly fine. So as long as you're reading horror, it's all good in my opinion. Okay, now let's start by acknowledging the other hosts beside myself that are participating in this awesome project, and I feel this list is growing every year, and what a lineup it is. So let's start with the hosts. So we have Ollie over at Criminolly, Book Songs and Other Magic, that's Gareth. We have Michael K. Vaughan, Sean D. Standfast. Now, just a word on these guys. Their channels are fantastic. They are experts in the horror genre. Every time they do a Horror Mayhem TBR, they don't just settle for anything. They give it really careful consideration, and they have a wealth of knowledge that contribute to those choices. And I wish I could be as insightful and thorough as they are, because they do produce really great picks for their reads for this project. They're fantastic. We have another bibliophile read, which is Greg. We have Book Blather, an autistic reader 2963, Big Hard Books 770. We have Mindy. Hey Mindy, good to see you on here again at Mindy's Book Journey. We have Jim Reads Too Slow, Ian Porter, Rambling Graconteur 1616, St. Donahue, that's Steve, and Brad Rad 9226, and Literate Texan. And last but certainly not least, I am so happy to see MJ on here this year. She has been asked by Scott and Becky to be a host, and her enthusiasm is so contagious. She is excited, and she's just raring to go. If it could start now, she'd start. And it's so fantastic to have her as a host as well, joining us for this fantastic project, because she will make a great contribution to the project. So great to see you on here, MJ. And of course, there's myself. Okay, so let's go through the weekly themes. The first theme for week 1 is local horror. Now, this one's going to be a challenge for me. It's, it could be local horror set in your immediate area or your state, or, it might be just down your street, a local legend. It could be, you could branch out to non-fiction as well, I believe. So if there's a non-fiction article or a true crime story, you could read that. If there's an author that lives in your area, I would class that as local horror as well. The setting could be setting of the book could be anywhere, but if it's written in your area, I think that would qualify as well. In my case, I don't think there's anything near me. I am going to do some research for this one. I'll look in my home state of Victoria in Australia. I believe there are some ghost stories and things like that. I may end up reading some non-fiction. It just depends. So we'll see how that goes, but it's certainly a prompt we haven't had before, and it will be challenging to dig a little bit and do some research. So there's going to be some work to do, but that's what makes the challenge fun with this prompt. Okay, I think the second one is one I'm looking forward to a lot, and this is Movie Week. Any book that is related to film. Now, this can be taken any number of ways. You can read a novelization of a film that has been made. You can read a book that went on to inspire an adaptation. You can read non-fiction books about movies. You can read a fiction book that has a movie theme. Final Girls by Riley Sager comes to mind, where they're talking about the final girls of horror films and things like that. So there's a lot of material to draw upon, and just a few examples that I'll share with you that might interest you. You've got things like Amityville Horror, Psycho, Jaws, The Exorcist, Poltergeist, that was novelised, The Lost Boys, The Omen, which I'm considering doing, American Psycho, that's another one I'm tempted to do, I Am Legend, The Mist by Stephen King, and The Woman in Black, which is a classic horror story that I think starred Daniel Radcliffe a few years back. So there is a lot of choice there, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And if you read a novelisation of a movie, the books aren't very long either. I'd be surprised if many of those are over 250 pages, but that's going to be a great one. The third week is an interesting one. It's classics. Now, as time has gone on, and as any fellow ex-Jenner will know, that the classics, the definition of a classic has become a little bit blurred in recent years, because when you think of classics, immediately that comes to mind, you're talking about Victorian horror, H.P. Lovecraft or Edgar Allan Poe and that sort of thing. However, the consensus has shifted a little bit, because as we get older, it's the 1970s and 80s that become our generation's classic period. And I think Gareth illustrated this point very well in his announcement video earlier this week, where he was talking about how the 70s and 80s was kind of a renaissance period for the horror genre. And I have to agree 100% with him, because around that time you're looking at things coming onto the cultural scene as, Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist. But see, what people don't realise is this: if we define classics as 70s and 80s, it would encompass things like vintage Dean Koontz and vintage Stephen King, Ramsey Campbell. You only have to look at the Paperbacks from Hell, which was a book that Grady Hendrix brought out a few years ago, and I believe MJ did a series of videos on this book some months ago, where it featured all the paperback covers from the 70s and 80s, and it's like all these horror writers sprung up out of the woodwork, and it launched this massive genre in the 70s and 80s. It just exploded, and it makes you think, was there something in the water in the 40s and 50s to create this multitude of writers that have influenced culture so profoundly over the last 30 years, 30 or 40 years. It's just incredible. So having said that, I think classics can be determined for an older generation like our generation, can be defined as 70s and 80s. And having said that, you can go back and read, an early King book if you like. You can. It doesn't stop you from going back to Victorian times and earlier. You can read Lovecraft and Poe. There's no rules here, but it's just interesting how the concept of classic horror has changed over time. And as time goes on, in another 30 years, the 2000s will become a classic period. So all very interesting, and can't wait to get stuck into that week. And the week 4 is contemporary, anything written post 2000, I think it's defined as. So you can think about indie authors here, because the indie author industry has exploded in recent times. There is so much material out there to sink your teeth into. Now I'm talking here about writers like Amy Cross, Darcy Coates. She's got a couple of great short story collections there, Quarter to Midnight and Small Horrors, and we've got Grady Hendrix, Joe Hill, Nick Cutter, Josh Mellerman, and Sammy Scott, to name a few. Now Sammy Scott in particular is he's an indie author who has released a recent collection of short stories called At Home with the Horrors, and it's safe to say I'll be getting stuck into that. But Amy Cross is meant to be really good. I would love to read some of her books, and her books aren't very long either. So there is so much choice there. There's so many indie authors to choose from. It's a very, very good prompt this year. Okay, so let's talk about some extra credit prompts here that have taken the form of a massive bingo card this year. In previous years, there have been extra credit for extra prompts, which I'll go through in a moment. And what has been created this year is a bingo card. So during your reading of Horror Mayhem, if you read about any of these prompts I'm about to go through, they count towards your target, and there are about, how many here? We've got 36. So it's a big ask, but I feel if you read a couple of collections during the project, obviously that's going to encompass a lot of these prompts, which will go towards a very good score on your bingo card. And I think it's a fantastic idea, and it's a massive list, and I will go through them fairly briefly. So the first one we have is Universal Monsters. We have graphic novels, comics and alternative media. We have cult horror, indie horror, personal horror, phobias, haunted house, possession, religious horror, body horror, slasher, killer animals, horror adjacent. I believe that's a blend of horror combined with sci-fi and romance and what have you. Translated horror. Now that can be a book, or it could even be manga, if Uzumaki Spirals comes to mind. So manga would be interesting for translated horror. You've got diverse authors, kidnappings, psychological horror. Riley Sager immediately comes to mind for that one. We have extreme horror, and we have one for PAX, which is a green cover. Now, just on that, Pax was a very big influence in the booktube community. She sadly passed away. I didn't know of her channel myself and didn't know her, but from testimonials from booktubers like Gareth and a few others, it was very touching to read the tributes when she did pass, and so I'm acutely aware of the impact she made on booktube, and in honour of her, they've released this prompt for a green cover. One that immediately springs to mind is the Green Mile, I would say, but a green cover it would be a lot of fun to find. We've got cozy horror, non-fiction based on a true story. We have cannibalism, apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic, elemental environment, folk horror, ghosts, witches, cryptids, cosmic horror, home invasions, aliens, curses. One that immediately comes to mind with curses is Thinner by Richard Bachman, aka Stephen King. Dolls. Now that's an interesting one. There are a lot of doll stories out there. What I might do is share something with you if I can find it online, wherever it is. I wrote a story about a possessed doll quite a few years ago, and it got published online 3 times and in print twice, so it did quite well for me. I haven't I don't know where it is online, but I'll try and find it and put a link in the description so that if you want to read that, please do, and let me know what you think. We've got clowns. Clown in a Cornfield comes to mind. Holiday horror. Evil children. Children of the Corn would be a good one there, and technological horror. Now, I think I'd be doing well if I even got 10 of these. It just depends on how many of these prompts are included in what I ultimately decide to read for the project. But I'll tally these up at the end of the month, I think. I won't put them in my weekly videos, but I'll tally them up at the end and give myself a score and see how we go. But yeah, if anyone else is going to be participating in this one, I think it's going to be an absolute blast. What I'll be doing, traditionally I've been doing weekly videos, so after week 1 I'll wrap it up with what my thoughts and impressions were and what I got through, and posting them every Sunday like I've traditionally done. And I think one video per week is fine, and I'll do one big wrap up video separately to tie it all together and give my thoughts and impressions on the project as a whole for this year, and share everything with you, including my bingo card score, whatever that will be. But I think everyone, all the hosts are pumped for this, including myself, and it's such a good little community when this project is run, because everyone's collaborative. Everyone puts out great content about their Horror Mayhem journey, and it's just a fantastic project to be a part of. And thanks must go to the Bookish Brians for creating this awesome project and developing such a following in all of us hosts. So can't wait to start, and in the next week or so I will put up a separate video on what I've come up with for my reading possibilities for the project, because I do have to think about it carefully and make some selections, and I can't wait to share those with you. So there you go, guys. That is it for my announcement video for Horror Mayhem 2024. Can't wait for it. It's going to be a blast, and can't wait to deliver to you some content throughout the month relating to all things horror reading. And until the next video, guys, happy reading.